Hello and welcome to Plugin of the Day. In today's video, we're going to be checking out the Analogue Obsession Prebox. Now, this plugin is essentially 11 preamps within one plugin, so that you have a choice and you don't have to keep on swapping out plugins to get the tone that you're looking for. Now, there is a little bit of variation between the different models here, as you're going to see in the video. I think there's some good choice and it's a great little plugin. So let's go and check it out. Okay, so I'm in Reaper here and this is the Analogue Obsession Prebox. Now, what is the Prebooks? Well, essentially it's a plugin that is 11 different preamps in one plugin. So if I'm going from the first one modelled is the Hamptone Tune Mic Pre, and then the second one is the SSL 9000J line pre. The third one is basically tape color, tape saturation. So this one will be a bit heavier, a bit more saturated than the other first two we've seen. Tape color or saturation is always colourful in the way it applies its saturation. The fourth one is the Chandler Red 47 Mic Pre, okay, Rosenrat. The fifth one is the Neve 1081 Mic Pre, so a very famous mic pre here, and again probably not as colourful as, say, the tape. The sixth one is the Alembic F2B Pre. Number 7 is the Quad 8 console. So this is a fairly unique console, mini console, that will impart its own colour. Number 8 is the Ampex AM10. Number 9 is the Ultic 1566A. Number 10 is another very famous one, Fairchild 692. And then last but not least is probably the most famous of the mic pre's, is the Telefunken V76. This is a very sought after and well known mic pre, and we will get to hear what it sounds like later in the video. So I'm going to go back to first model. I'm going to take the plugin out for the moment and just explain we've got some simple controls here. Input, so minus or 24 gain. Output the same, plus or minus 24, so to compensate if we need to for the input. Simple high pass filter, so we've got flat, which is no filter at all, 80 hertz, 300 hertz, and then 300 plus 80, so 380. And then the low pass is very simple, either no low pass at all, flat, or taking it right down to 3K, which will be very noticeable, depending on what source you're using. Now, I have the plugin on oversampling, so if I take that off, but if I click on it, it turns red. Oversampling is on, and we have a bypass knob here, but we won't be using that. And I'm going to play through now, just have a listen to how it sounds, and then we're going to go through the actual sounds of the different models of preamps. Now, there won't be a huge variation, so don't expect anything drastic between the different ones here. It just depends on source material coming in. Here I have a bass synthesizer lick going on, and it's in loop, so we'll just listen to it going through. And I'm using bass synth, bass guitar could be just as well, but I'm using a bass source because you tend to hear that furry low end come in when it's starting to overdrive. So it's a good telltale sign of when the source material was starting to break up slightly through saturation. And we will find that that will happen at different levels on the input. I probably won't use the output at all in this video, just because I want to show what the different models are doing. Without any further delay, let's check out without the plugin in. let's see what the first model sounds like. Let's play through, and I'm just going to push the input up until it starts breaking up and then back it off a little. Right, okay, so you could hear there, it started really breaking up about 17, but it started to warm up around about 11 to 12. You could hear the difference starting to come in. So that was the Hamp Tone Tube Mic Pre. We're going to move on now to the SSL 9000J line Pre, and let's see what that can do. Right, okay, so in this example, there's a bit more hair on this one. Yeah, on the SSL, it actually not known for that, whereas the SSL 4000 was definitely known for being quite beefy in the saturation department. The 9000 isn't as so, but it's certainly more than the Hamp Tone. Around about 1011 you could start to hear it actually have an effect, so it was happening a little bit earlier on this model. So, and before I go any further, those of you who don't know what the AGC does, okay, it's instantiated, it's off it there, I've got it on, just so that you know, a very simple explanation would be that this is a buffer. Okay, it's a buffer of sorts. It's you're taking away the level rise in input, so we're driving into this, and it's keeping the level more or less about the same. So kind of like a pad, yeah, or a compressor, if you like, that is keeping it at one level, and then we're pushing into it. So that is basically what this button does here. Right, let's move on to the third model, which is tape color. Now this should impart one of the most saturated tones out of all of them, but let's check it out. Well, there you could see straight away, definitely earlier than the previous two, the saturation started to hit quite heavily, and then it was really breaking up when we got up to about 17. So that's what the tape colour can do. So let's move on to the Chandler Red 47. This one won't be quite as colourful as the tape. Let's check it out. Yeah, as suspected, not quite as heavy-handed as the tape, a nice saturation. Now you're probably starting to get to see that. It's subtleties here, the different variations, apart from possibly the tape. They're just pretty subtle differences, so don't expect anything drastic with this plugin, but then again, it is a mic pre and you're just choosing on source and taste. So let's go on to the fifth one, the Neve 1081. Now this shouldn't be too heavy-handed, this one, but it's going to be fairly light, the Neve, but let's check it out anyway. It is not as heavy-handed as any of the others, in fact. I think so far it's probably the one that is, we have to drive it a little bit more on the Neve than we have had on the other models. Let's go to the sixth model here, and this is the Alembic F2B preamp. Again, very similar to the Neve. In fact, maybe even we might have to push the Alembic even further to get that very heavy saturation, even more so than the 1081. Let's move on to model 7, and that is the Quad 8 console. So it'll be interesting to see how this one sounds, because I know very little about this console. Let's see. Well, that's interesting. Along with the tape, this is easily the most colourful of the models so far. I really like this, especially if I wanted to push something. This would be great actually on drums. I found something out there, and hopefully you have too. Number 8 is the Ampex AM10. Let's check it out. That one's definitely more subtle. All of these are very musical as well. They're, apart from the tape and the Quad 8 console, which push a little bit harder, they're all, and even those, are very musical. There's nothing obtrusive about these models, and I'm quite impressed. Right, number 9 is the Altec 1566A. Let's check it out. If you're enjoying watching this video, please consider smashing that like button and subscribing to my channel so that I can keep on bringing this free content. The Altec don't have to push it too far for it to saturate. Look at that. I think it was 10.5. In fact, it may even be one you have to push least to get saturation out of all these models so far, possibly. But it's certainly up there with the tape and the Quad 8 console. For 10, right, okay. Anyone who has any knowledge about music production will probably have heard of the Fairchild. This is the 692. Let's have a listen. Right, okay, so with the Fairchild, I had to push it quite a bit for it to start getting furry. That is the beauty of this plugin, that we have variety. So we're not having to chase around and look for something, bring in another plugin, and then maybe another one to do different things. If you've got it all in one plugin here, then happy days. So on to number 11, and this is probably the most famous of them. The Telefunken V76, very sought after, not easily acquired, very expensive. Let's check it out. Fairchild, you'd have to push it too far for it to start doing its magic. Probably really good, I think, would be on a drum source, a drums bus, the old tech, the Quad 8 and the tape. If you put any of these and drive them on, if you're doing parallel compression, if you set up 2 channels and you have one doing New York style compression, parallel compression, and you're slamming there, and then on a different track, an effects track, within Reaper or whichever DAW you might be using, put one of these 4 models that I've just mentioned on and drive it hard. Frank Zappa was famous for doing this. He was, apart from being a masterful musician, he was actually a really, really great producer as well. And he came up with this idea, whether he invented it or he learned it off of a different producer, I don't know. But he would have a New York compression on one outsourced to one bus, and obviously this is back in the analog days, and then on a separate bus he would put some kind of saturation on there, and then he would blend both of those back into the drums to make the effect that he wanted. So that's an idea. If you've not done that before, try it out. It really works well. I'm just going to work on, we'll keep it on the Telefunken here. I'm going to push it in, and we're just going to go through the filters, and then that will be the end of this review. So we've gone through pretty much all of the functions there. I haven't used the output because I just wanted to demonstrate what the plugin can do. You can do that yourself if you wish. I'll leave that up to you. But we know what everything can do now. We know what the different models can do. What do I think of this plugin? Well, I think it's great. I mean, I love all the Analogue Obsession plugins. They're really good for what we do. You can donate towards them, but essentially they're free. I think the quality of these plugins, when you compare them to some of the name brands out there, is astonishing. So if you don't have this plugin or any of the other Analogue Obsession plugins, I highly suggest you check them out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon. Sabs out.